I have a dream, oh, I have a dream. Red, white, and blue, fly free, fly free. I believe, oh, I believe. Will you dream with me? Do you dream of trout?
Good morning, everyone out there. Welcome to Changing Times. It is Wednesday, August the 9th. We are live at the Axe Media Group headquarters in Springfield, Missouri. And we've got a little teaser that we're going to show right now. And just to get our show started, we've got a great guest today. I can't wait to start talking to her. I want you to be able to pay attention and listen all 45 minutes to just a beautiful testimony, tremendous ideas and things that will help restore your hope and faith and make your life a better life. So let's play this 60-second teaser.
And I said, could you tell me what you're seeing? He said, I think that's Jesus.
And she said she saw Jesus at the front of his bed, just holding him.
And I knew I was dead. I mean, there's just no way the human body could handle that. But I kept breathing.
Moments before, the room was dark, and now I'm just overflowing with peace.
She said, your journey's not of medicine, it's miraculous.
And I remember the Lord saying, that feeling is the feeling of life, not death. It was me who released his hands from around your neck.
Wow, it's all Jesus. It's all him.
If you want God in your life, there's more than enough evidence to prove he's there.
Wow, that's a good way to start our show. What a tremendous little teaser about really what Julie Hedenborg. Julie, are you on with us now?
Yes, I believe I am.
Okay, thank you. I now see. Okay, well, hey, tell you what, I really appreciate folks. We're zooming Julie in from Charlotte, North Carolina. While we've got rain and storms coming in today, she's got hot weather, and that's kind of summertime for a lot of us around the United States. But we really appreciate Julie. I appreciate you coming in today and being with all our viewers all over the country and around the world. And I know that you've got some great things that you're going to say that will really make a difference in people's lives. And I just want people to know that you've got a podcast, and I believe that the podcast is called Everyday Miracles. Is that what it's called?
Yes.
Or something. Okay. And how many people do you have watching your podcast?
I just added up my numbers for this interview because I had no idea. I have had over 3 million views or listens across all platforms. That's including another ministry that's been sharing some of my content. So that I had no idea it was even that high. God is doing amazing things because I just figured out in year 4 how to do the subscribe now button. So it's all prayer, really.
Well, I tell you, that is absolutely God's miracle too, because that's just amazing. Over 3 million people have been touched by what you have shared. And I really like what you do. You share miracles and testimonies of people that have been touched by God and have been shown favor and maybe healed of things that you would never even expect. At our church, at James River Church in Ozark, Missouri, they have 4 churches around Springfield and Joplin, the largest church in the state of Missouri. And we've been going through a season of miracles now for almost 1 year. Miracles every Sunday, every Wednesday night, everything's things that we've never heard or seen before. We're seeing, and so that's really what you're sharing on your podcast. And then you create the podcast. You're the host of the podcast. You're also an author. You wrote a book, and I believe that book was called what was it? Book Picture Perfect.
Yes, it wasn't the book I thought I would write or wanted to write, but yes.
Nope. But God told you to write this book, and I think that's a great book. But guess what? I think you're still going to write another book or two of these testimonies and these miracles that you see, because honestly, people get a lot of energy out of seeing other miracles, and they want a miracle in their life. And I think you've got to know it's out there. Some people don't even have a clue that miracles are happening out there. And so I think you have to share that information with them. So I bet you God will put that in your mind to write another book. Well, I tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to start. I've just got a few questions, and we're kind of going to make sure that the people know all about you and about your faith and stuff like that. We're going to kind of just jump right in. So 2015, July the 1st, 2015, you had a very traumatic experience, and basically that changed your faith. And can you share a little bit about that with our audience?
Yes, absolutely. It was actually July 3rd when I found myself in an
July
ambulance.
3rd.
Yeah, and it was something kind of a freak accident. Essentially, it left me with 2 arteries to my brain that were dissected, and I had an aneurysm. And in the ambulance, and I was a Christian, but I was kind of a check the box every Sunday Christian. I wasn't spirit filled. I wasn't really experiencing a true relationship and intimacy with God. I didn't have that regular scripture and quiet time, and I'm still working in that too. But I was in an ambulance, and I overheard the paramedics speak to one another, and I realized the gravity of the situation. And I realized in that moment, I may not go home. I could, they were talking about having to be such a smooth ride that they couldn't hit a pothole. They couldn't hit a bump. They had to go very careful. And as I was Googling what I had, I realized there could be a clot sitting there that could take my life. And actually, when I Googled it, it said, "For those that survive." That was the first line. And I laugh now, but at the time, obviously I was terrified in that moment. And I cried out to God. And I really had that moment where I got to think, did I glorify God with my life? Did I live a life that glorified him? Do the people in my life know just how much I love them? And I prayed to God. I prayed a prayer that just came back to me years later now, that God has answered my prayer. The ambulance prayer was, God, let me share you with just one more person, anyone. And I think I even said, I'll take a Satanist, just one more person. That was my prayer in the ambulance. And 3 days later, I did get out of the neurovascular ICU. Miraculously, I did not have a full stroke. I did have some small TIAs, which is like a kind of like a small stroke that's usually transient, and it doesn't have a long-term effect. So God was with me. He saved my life. I believe it was a complete miracle that I'm still here, given what I had. And I think the critical thing with that injury is that it led me ultimately to completely surrender my life to Christ. And I had accepted Jesus. I know that I'm loved. It's not about works, obviously. I knew that my salvation was secure. I loved Jesus, but I just hadn't taken that next step because I was afraid. I was afraid that maybe he would ask me to sell everything I own and go to Africa and eat bugs, or, I don't know. And I would have to do that. And so at that point, I realized, the rest of my life, this is all just bonus. God, whatever you want me to do, anything. And, you get to that point where you're down, your face is on the carpet, and you completely give it all to him. And suddenly there was this journey of me learning to hear from God, learning, I joined a Bible study, and at first I was hesitant because I didn't even feel worthy. I remember all the pages of my Bible, still sticking together. You get a new Bible and the pages all stick together. And the women were amazing, and they really led me in my walk. There were things I had to deal with that first year that were very difficult. And God did a lot in that season, although there was a lot of pruning. Ultimately, I ended up not being able to go back to work, and they considered me disabled. And that was not related to the neck part. That was actually related to my spine. But it was a difficult time, but God was doing things through it, and surrendering to him, learning to hear his voice for the first time, learning his heart through scripture. And then years later, being called to the podcast so clearly. And it was just amazing. And even then, I had no idea. You see the trailer. I had no idea I was going to share things like that. I didn't realize how you talk about not realizing the miracles. I should do a collage of my shock faces, Lynn, because I had no idea how many miracles were happening and all of these supernatural things. And God has just led me every step. And I've, I've just been, I'm in awe of God. I truly am. I actually got choked up during the little teaser. I think I've watched it a lot of times, but just seeing what he's done has been amazing. And with someone who has no background in doing a podcast or interviewing people, I was a nurse by trade. So that was definitely a life-changing event.
Well, let's go through that a little bit too. So you are a nurse, you were a nurse, and you still are a nurse, but you did that for what, about 15 years as a cardiac ICU nurse? Is that about the
I did
amount of time?
cardiovascular ICU for about 2 years, and I
Oh,
did a
2
little
years.
surgical. Sometimes we did surgical overflow, but and then I became a certified registered nurse anesthetist, which is CRNA. I did that for
Okay.
16 years, and
Okay.
it's been several years now that I have not been working. But God has, I like to say, redirected versus disabled. I don't receive that label. And actually now I love what I do. And I would have never dreamt this path. But how many people say that when God calls them to something? He has bigger, better plans for us than what we could imagine. So,
Well, Julie, we've talked on our show before, and we had guests talking about the purposes that God has for us in our life. And it kind of changes. Sometimes we get a curveball thrown at us, kind of like what you did. But God has more purpose. He didn't just create us for one thing. He created us for many different things throughout our life. And if you pay attention and listen to him, then you'll be following exactly what you're doing. You and I have a lot in common. We talked before the show started. You've been in healthcare for a long time. I am too. So I'm a pharmacist, and I ran a hospital as chief operating officer at Columbia HCA in Springfield. I know they have hospitals all over the country, and had 26 pharmacies, my wife and I, and my wife's a nurse, and so we're together on that. Another thing we have a similarity I didn't tell you about, but you talk about your traumatic experience, and you were in that ambulance, and I tell you what, I had the same type of an experience. About 30 years ago, I was driving back home from one of my pharmacies down around Table Rock Lake, where you're going to be in Branson this next weekend. We'll talk about that too. And I hit the back of a semi truck that was stopped on the highway, turning left to get diesel fuel. And I had 13 feet of skid mark as I took this big long curve. And so obviously I didn't do too well. Highlandville Rescue, they've been tremendous. I've made some offerings and donations to them because they saved my life. They had to cut me out of my car. I was in shock. I was bleeding. I had some injuries, head injury, shoulder, knee injuries, just different things. And I remember as I was taken and put in that ambulance, and they were driving to Springfield to the hospital. I remember praying too. And I actually remember my prayers. Over all this time, I remember what I was thinking, what I was afraid about, what I was praying to God about. And so those similarities are all seems like pretty same. And so, for me, what I did was I continued in healthcare, but I used the shotgun approach. I for a while, I didn't have clear message of what I was supposed to be doing for God's work for people. But I just started doing everything I could, volunteered everywhere, did everything I could to, help seniors, help young people, whatever. I tried to do that. And and then I started getting a better direction on what I should do. This show is one of the things that I should do. And so to help other people. So that's really good. Let's talk about, you talked about miracles, you talked about testimonies, all those years in the hospital, that you saw a lot of miracles, right? In the hospital.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Just things that you wouldn't expect people to even come out of, and they do come out of it. And let me ask you a question. I'm always curious. If I was going to have a surgery, I'd always want to have a physician that is a Christian physician that really believed in God and served God. Back when you were, and you're a lot younger than me, but when you were working in a hospital, because I tried to watch people, because I was overall, as a chief operating officer, I was over all the different surgeries, respiratory, radiology. I was over pharmacy, all the different departments I was over. So was a lot of those members that you worked with, were they Christians? Or do
I
you know?
live in Billy Graham land. So yes, a
Okay.
lot of them
Okay.
were. Now,
Well,
some of them
thank,
were a little more bold than in their faith, and they would pray openly with their patients, and some are a little more reserved.
well, I tell you what, I mean, to me, that makes a real difference. But I mean, I would feel much more peace at mind when you put me to sedate me to get ready for that operation. I would be much more at peace of mind if I knew the physician and the nurses that were around me were Christians too. And I think to me that would just make it so much better. So I do that. So Acts Ministry, I don't know if you know very much about us or not, but we're a worldwide non-denominational ministry. Basically, if a church believes in God, Son, and Holy Spirit, we have different churches, different backgrounds, and so we're a group that tries to work with several types of churches. And I really like that. I really like that because I don't think that, we have so many different types of churches. And I kind of relate it to ice cream. I love ice cream. I haven't found a flavor I don't like. And so I think about all the different churches. There's a lot of good churches out there, and I think God is okay with all those different churches. So when you're listening to testimonies and things like that you want to put on your podcast, are you choosing from different churches, or are you just sticking mostly with just your own type of church?
Well, initially when I started, I thought, well, it'll probably just be people from my Bible study, maybe my church. I didn't know I was going to grow the way God has grown. Again, He has done this. I was afraid at first to interview people that may be under the same Christian umbrella. Like my best friend is Catholic. There are nuances of her faith that are different than mine. I have had some people that are practicing Catholics on the show. I had a woman who is Jewish, who, again, I'm like, well, I do. The first question on my form when you apply for my show is, do you believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God? I have this very similar conviction as you, but I had to pray about this in the beginning because I'm starting to get different people kind of in a little bit of a different. Again, the major pieces are the same. Theology is important. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying, but I like to stick to what the Bible says. And I want to avoid anything New Age, obviously. Some things I get are out there, so God gives me the discernment. But I prayed diligently in the beginning because I said, Lord, I want to do what you want me to do. And I really felt like what He was leading me to do. He just told me, He said, just keep Jesus in the center and stop putting people in all these boxes. They're people, we all need Jesus. So it was difficult in the beginning, and I still pray for discernment on a regular basis. And my goal is just to point people to Jesus Christ and His word. And it's funny because in the beginning, I think I used to pray like, well, help them see the truth. And now I actually enjoy talking to people that may have some different nuances to their faith. Maybe they see communion in a different way somewhat. I mean, just slightly different practices. I'm not, again, the basic things, I agree. Jesus is the only way, is the truth and the life, but I enjoy it now. And Jesus has to be at the center. I do believe He's the only way. But it was a challenge at first. And sometimes I still have one or two that I might run by one of my friends and say, can you pray on this and tell me what you think? And I may get to heaven and realize that maybe there was one, that was off. But I think God can even use my mistakes. Whether a Bible study is listening and they say, well, I think she might have been wrong here, or, and they all learn from it. Well, then it's a win. this is not about me being the perfect theologian. I'm reaching a lot of people that are not in church, that are desperate for hope. And I've had so many people write to me and say, wow, you led me to the Bible. And one girl read the whole Bible for the first time in her life. And she said, this changed my life. And so I know God is using it. But yes, I do pray for discernment on that. It's important.
Well, I think I think you're exactly right. You're spot on. So you're doing a great job. I mean, I've only attended growing up. I went to a Baptist church for years and years as I was growing up, and then when I went to college, I went to a Presbyterian church in Kansas City, and came back to Springfield when I graduated from pharmacy school. Went to a Presbyterian church. Then when I moved to Ozark from Springfield, I went to a Baptist church. And then after 8 or 9 years ago, I switched over to James River Church in Ozark, and it's Assembly of God. So those are the churches I know, but I know there's friends of mine that go to other churches, and we're pretty close to each other. And so I think that it's okay. I think it's okay to, don't forget God is at the center, but we all have our own values. We're not ever going to kind of give in on, but I think it's okay to have these different churches. And I think different people will reach different people that you're trying to reach. And so I think that's good. Well, I tell you what we're going to do right now. We're going to take just a short break. We have 3 sponsors on our show. Julie, you're seeing our studio, and we're really proud of our studio. But someday, I'm praying, and it will happen. It will happen. We're going to actually have a little bit better setup to where I'd love to be able to have a phone system to where people could call in. I know that there'd be somebody or somebodies out there that would like to call and ask you a question. I was used to that for my talk radio show for 7.5 years. We had a lot of call-ins, and that made our show interesting. And I just think that that's my goal. So we do have some sponsors, so we give them just a little bit of time. Then we're going to jump right back in. We're going to talk about Branson, and you're going to be in Missouri next weekend. First time that you've been to Branson. So we'll talk about that and what you're going to be doing. But our first sponsor is Brad Pistow. He is a certified fiduciary financial planner located right in Ozark, Missouri. And he has written a couple books. They both are award-winning, best-selling books on Amazon for retirement planning. The first one is called Safe Money Matters. Safe Money Matters. The second book that came out last December was called Bulletproof. You can get one or both of those books, get information if you will call 417-581-9222. If you call that number, 417-581-9222, they'll send you a book. They'll send you other information, no charge. He's licensed in 3 states. And so Brad Pistow licensed in 3 states. And so you say, well, I'm in one of the other 47 states. How's that going to help me? He goes around the country, Julie, just like you do, speaking, going around, talking to people, helping people. He's a contributor for USA Today. He writes retirement articles for that. So he is well known all over the country, and he has friends and associates in other states, and he can hook you up with them, and you can get the same type. My wife and I have used him. So over the last year and a half, you've seen the stock market go up and down, just like a yo-yo, mostly down. I've not lost a dollar. I've not lost a dollar with my retirement planning program that he set us up with, and I will outlive my money. Okay. That's probably the biggest worry that people have in retirement years is, will I live longer than my money? You pay attention to his plans and you will not outlive your money. So that is a great thing. So I highly recommend Brad Pistow. Our second sponsor, he's going to be on the air on, I believe, August 31st, the last Wednesday of this month. Youngblood Motor Group. They're located in Springfield, Missouri at 3535 South Campbell. 3525 South Campbell, and they sell Nissans and Kias on one side, and they have about 150 certified cars on used cars on the other side of South Campbell, just across the street. And they are tremendously great in customer service. They have great products. I bought my last 2 cars from them, and their telephone number, if you need to know the number, 417-882-3838, 882-3838. So they are great people, been in business over 43 years in Southwest Missouri. So long-term family-owned business. And he's going to be making a tremendously new, important announcement on August 31st. Our last sponsor is Louis Michael. And Julie, you're going to meet Louis Michael down there next weekend, and his wife Patty. And he's a realtor for the firm in Ozark, Missouri. And he's just one of the nicest guys that you'd ever want to meet. And he sells real estate, sells farms, homes, help you buy or sell. And his phone number is 417-988-1086, 417-988-1086. He also has Choosing to Live. Julie, we talked about that. And he goes around, spends a lot of his time and money trying to help people that are suicidal, trying to help make sure they choose life over death. Okay. And he's just a tremendous nice guy, Elvis impersonator, one of the best in the world, traveled around the world performing Elvis shows and stuff like that. So tremendously nice guy. Julie, you might have to ask him if he'll sing a song Saturday when he speaks, but that's our sponsors, and we're really proud of them. So we're back on now, Julie. So Branson, you've never been to Branson, Missouri. Have you been to Missouri before?
No, I don't think I have.
Well, welcome to Missouri. We are proud of Missouri. We're about 6.7 million, so we're not a real big state, but where you're going is just absolutely beautiful. A lot of us choose to live where we live because it is so beautiful. If you like lakes, rivers, streams, lots of hunting, fishing, all those outdoor activities, I think we're the place to go. And I don't know how long you're going to be staying there, but I love Dogwood Canyon. Johnny Morris was pretty well raised here. His first Bass Pro was here in Springfield, Missouri, and he's just a tremendously nice guy. Helps conservation projects and stuff like that. Any of the things that you go to see, Silver Dollar City, the Hershans, all the things, you're going to see Queen Esther. I highly recommend that. Jan and I've done that. And there's just so much to do down in Branson, Missouri, and it's a family-oriented type of place. They don't have things that families would be embarrassed to have their family down there driving up and down the main streets and things like that. So you're gonna really like that. I think it's going to be good. So you're going to be speaking. Are you speaking both days?
No, just Saturday.
Saturday, okay. Well, that's where I'm going. So I'm going Saturday, and I think it's I bought Janet a ticket, and then I thought to myself, well, because I wanted her to hear all that, and then I thought, I think I need to accompany her. I need to take care of her and drive her down there and everything. So we'll be there for the whole day Saturday, and we eat lunch with you all, and we're just going to enjoy the entire experience of listening to some great speakers and feel. I mean, it's like going to church. Don't you feel so much better after you get out of church? You can feel differently every Sunday. Sometimes you feel tired. Sometimes you feel worried. You just have different thoughts in your mind. But when I leave church, after I hear Pastor John at my church, I'm ready to tackle the world again. So it's like a blood infusion. If you go to the right church and you hear the right messages, it's almost like a blood infusion. You get energy. Mm-hmm. You feel good. You feel closer to God. So have you thought about what you're going to share when you get to Branson?
Yes, actually, I have. And I'll tell you honestly, I had just completed a huge slide presentation for the effects of social media and staying anchored in our identity in Christ in a tumultuous world, right? And
Right.
pretty much scrapped that. It was very good. We possibly might have been walking out of there, all of us throwing our phones in the trash can after some of the stuff that I found on social media, but there are benefits to it too. So, there is a way that as Christians, we can be a light on a hill or a lamp on a hill, right? On social media as well, as I'm sure this will be posted on social media, for example, will be a great thing. But I felt like the Lord just shifted what I'm supposed to talk about. And it will be a little bit on social media, but the book that he had me write was a message that he gave me for me. And it was about finding my own identity in Christ and remembering the promises that God has stated over my life in his word. And the fact that he does have a plan for our life. And, it's not, again, not about works. There's no condemnation. We can't all be Billy Graham, but God has a purpose for each one of us. And number one is to have that intimacy with him and to be connected to him, right? And to rest in him. And the message that I have will be part of my own vulnerable, some funny struggles in the whole journey. And it will also be very encouraging for other people, because I often think about, if I had chickened out from this calling, I would still be in heaven. Again, it's not a salvation issue, but all of the things that God has blessed me with and grown in me, and yes, there have been some challenges and some uncomfortable moments, but it's been such an amazing journey. I'm so glad I didn't chicken out. And I feel like there will be people in the audience there listening that will kind of hear some of the funny moments and some of the relatable moments, and maybe it might encourage them to take that step out in faith. And if nothing else, just the priority of just having that time every day with Jesus and letting him keep you in his peace and not being shaken by everything that's going on around us right now. So yeah, I get 40 minutes on Saturday, and it will be fun, hopefully inspiring, and God glorifying. So that's my hope.
Well, I bet it will be. So I don't know if you've ever heard this before, Julie, or not, but I've thought about this but I'm just an old man, but I've thought about this several times. I really believe that God is the greatest cheerleader of mankind. I really believe that he cheers us on and drives us to the right things to do, just as he's doing you right now in your life. And every time you accomplish something, Julie, for people, he's cheering. He's getting excited. So as you get more excited about your blog and everything that you're doing in life that is pleasing the Lord, he's rejoicing. He's happy, and you have to know that when he's happy, we're happy. I mean, it's one of those things that it all works together. I don't know if anybody else has ever thought of it that way or not, but it's just me. It's just the way I've thought about it. So I think that's going to be great. I'm excited. Like I say, I'm excited to hear all the speakers. I've had Tammy Trent on, and I've had you on, and we'll continue. I'll go down there and find other people, because I want our show that's seen around the country, around the world. I want to introduce over time all the different people that have been down there that I met and had the privilege to listen to, because I think I owe it. If I know you, I've met you, and now I'm going to meet you in person this next weekend. And I really believe that it's my duty, my job. God has told me to find people. The show is not about me. It's not about Acts Ministry as much as it is about me finding the right guests to tell their story. And so I think that's really good. So, hey, right now, before we forget, because we will run out of time, how do people get a hold of you, either on the internet, email, website, whatever? Because I bet you some more people want to find out about your podcast. So how do they find out about
Thank
you?
you. Yes, I do have a website. It's called everydaymiraclespodcast.com. And my email is everydaymiraclespodcast@gmail.com. And that is miracles plural. That's one way that they can reach me. But my show is on YouTube. I have a video show that you can see the people. There are a few that are just recorded, but most of them are video. And then there are also every podcast platform, pretty much, Spotify. Yeah, a lot of different places.
Well, I tell you what, that's great. So I hope people, and we'll try to put this on some of the works that we have through Acts Ministry. I'm going to have a list of all the people that we've had on recently, and we'll try to put different ways that people can reach them and stuff like that to continue to see our show and see what you're saying and stuff like that. So I don't know if you know, but our show is seen live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter at 9 a.m. every Wednesday as you and I are live. And then it's also seen on Daily Motion, Rumble, LinkedIn, and Radio Free America. And on Facebook, which is how I go back and look at our show, you just look for Acts, ACTS Ministry group, and then just look under Changing Times and you'll find it. So Acts Media Group, and then you'll pop right up. Changing Times will pop right up. You can see this show, Julie, so you can use this show and cut parts of it out and make it something that you can use for your own purpose. And then you can go back. People, what's cool is any of those different platforms, you can watch it later on. Acts Ministry puts it in a library, so you can even see Human Trafficking, which was our first show that Don and I did over 2 years ago. So it's really cool that sometimes when people discover our show, they decide that, oh, I'm going to go back and look at some other shows. And so I really like that. So our audience continues to grow. Well, let me ask you this. I don't want to put you on the spot because I know you have so many testimonies and so many miracles. But is there one testimony or miracle that stands out, or is there just a whole bunch of them that stand out over your lifetime?
Oh, well, the biggest miracle that ever happened was the resurrection of Jesus Christ, right? But so there's nothing that can top that, and we wouldn't be here without that. But I think I mentioned my Jewish friend earlier. Okay. She's one of my top episodes that has affected a lot of people. I asked her, I said, so you're Messianic and she's still practicing as a Jewish person, but she grew up, and at 16, she was told her whole life that Jesus was a hoax. And at 16, she actually died briefly, and a horse fell on her and she died. And she said suddenly she's in the air and she's looking down at the scene, and there's a light behind her to her right. And she turns and she said, it was Jesus. And she's like, I knew it was Jesus. And she fell so in love with Jesus. Obviously, she was brought back to life. It was very difficult for her and her community to have this Jesus experience. She went through a lot of things with her family. She actually moved to Israel for a year after that happened to her and learned to speak Hebrew. She wanted everything Jesus. I just love her. And she kind of has like two different churches, but she loves Jesus, yet she's still Jewish. And it's interesting, but her testimony has affected so many people. I can't count the amount of emails I get because they're so moved by the authenticity of her share. And there's so many others. There's actually a few miracles that I share that are miracles of comfort, where someone lost a child. It was tragic. And the way God comforted them, I never thought I would share a miracle like that. And that's like having the faith of Job, right? So, those really touch me and they stay with me. There was a 20-year Satanist who was going to kill a pastor who ends up an evangelist. Amazing. There's so many, but yeah, that one I think has affected more people. And that one is probably one of the most viewed. There's one more that's higher, and he's actually a new believer, and he was a big time forensic detective. And as much as I love sharing the on fire for God testimonies, this man, you could see in his face for the first time, him realizing in his retirement that God is real. And there's something so beautiful in seeing that. And I think I have over 900,000 views on, wow. That one is on Destiny Image. Well, yeah.
See, those things have to make a difference in people's lives, and they have to initiate that other people want that same thing. And so I think what you're doing is extremely powerful. I'll just tell you this, Julie. To me, you are a difference maker. I have always looked for my 2+ years for difference makers to be on our show. And Don Blackard that always sat across from me, she would always say, "You're being the change." That's a powerful combination. Powerful.
Oh, thank
So,
you.
hey, so one more question, and then we're going to talk. Well, let's talk about the Girls and Women's Conference. I want to make sure I get this in. So it is August the 19th and 20th. If you live anywhere in Missouri, but even if you live in another state, it's not too late to either drive or make arrangements to fly to Springfield, Missouri. It's less than 60 minutes to Branson from Springfield. You're going to see a Girls and Women's Conference. It's just all girls and women. She says, Jill Reynolds, the creator of this production, says are Queen Esther's. And Queen Esther is actually being produced down at Branson right now. And I always encourage people to go there. It's Resilient Brave Hearts. You can buy tickets right now at www.braveheartworkshops.com. www.braveheartworkshops.com, and tickets are still available. It's going to be a great weekend next weekend. I'm looking forward to it. And one last question, just kind of a silly question, but it's always been important to me. Well, so you're much younger. You've got children. You and your husband have children. I've got grandchildren. So I've got children. I've got grandchildren. But what kind of music does your church play?
I go to Elevation Church, so we are spoiled rotten with music. I love it. We get to have. We just had we've had different Christian music stars come. Brandon Lake has been sung at our church. Michael Smith. All kinds of different people that you would recognize. We have amazing worship at our church.
Yeah, you've got some big stars. Well, the reason why I asked that is, I'm just an old guy. You're looking at me. And so I was born and raised up with the old type music, old gospel music. I had to get used to James River because they play contemporary music that now I do listen to. Some of the Christian stations, and I listen to some of the same music that we do at church. But I'm always doing the prayer request. So I fill out a prayer request, and sometimes I put on this prayer request, no prayer request for me except sing an old song for an old people in the church. So I like songs like How Great Thou Art, Old Rugged Cross, The Anchor Holds. I just like old songs every once in a while mixed in with all this new contemporary music. And to me, it'd be a better world. If you listen to the words of the old gospel songs, that is a real message in itself. And sometimes, I don't know, maybe I'm just different, but I just don't always think that I'm getting everything I need to out of the new contemporary songs. But the good news about James River is I can sing, and my wife has, in 7 or 8 years, she's never kicked me with her feet because at the Baptist church where I went for 30 years, she thought I was singing too loud, and she'd always nudge me or kick me and tell me to not sing so loud. I guess she didn't think I was a very good singer. I actually think I'm pretty good, but just teasing. But that's what I see about churches is the fact that anybody can go, you can sing, you can do whatever you want to. I really appreciate we don't have to dress up anymore. I see people with shorts on at church and stuff like that. And I think still churches are intimidating. So we have a good friend, John and Beth Wilson. I wish you'd get to know them sometime. And they have church without walls. They do outdoor concerts. And they'll have lots of salvations, a lot of baptisms. They have a lot of stuff going on, but they have big name people from all over the world coming to do concerts outdoors. Now during the wintertime, yes, they have the events indoors, but I kind of like that too because there's no barriers. And I like to go there and watch the people around me and see how they worship and how they find God in those places. So that's kind of cool. But hey, last word. Do you have any last words for us?
I try to get to the conference. Jill is pouring her heart and soul into this, and she has really got a great lineup of people. So please just make it a point to be there. We still have seats available, so I really hope to meet you there.
Yeah, I'll definitely look you up, and it's going to be great. I appreciate Jill Reynolds. Ever since she's moved to Branson, she's had some events like that. Many times she funds it herself, but she's doing God's work, and she's got her own story to tell. You know, it's interesting. We all have our own story to tell, and I'm sure she'll share her story too. So that'll be great. I think I've got the best day, but Sunday will be great too, because
You dream this land stays free under God, not tyranny. That's what it means to really
appreciated our first 60 seconds that you gave. That was, to me, just set the tone for what you do and what this show is about today, that finding hope and faith and you know, all those things that will bring our good health to us through Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. So thank you very much, and I will see you. Safe travels, and I'll see you next weekend. Okay?
Okay. Thank you, Lynn, for the opportunity. Blessings.
You're welcome, Julie. Julie Hedenborg. Thank you very much.
To really dream. 1, 2, 3.